Well, welcome everyone as we talk about European space and space in general. I think with these interesting panelists here with me, as already said, Bulent Altan, founding partner of Alpine Space Ventures, a European space VC. And here we have with me representatives from Nils, from the exploration company, a company, one of the fastest growing deep tech startups, actually the fastest as far as I know, deep tech startups in Europe, building space capsules to bring both cargo and finally humans to space. And we have Raycho here from Enduro Sat, a Bulgarian company, working into democratizing space for many out there and getting them capabilities to launch satellites into orbit. I think you have quite a bit of traction already out there, 240 customers in many, many countries and many contracts out there already. From my past life, I hear many people flying your hardware out there in space, and I've seen your name over and over. But let's start with the main question that people ask me about space every time. Which one of you is the billionaire? Because the way I heard it, in order to make millions in space, you got to start as a billionaire. So, and everyone we hear in the space race seems to be starting their companies as a billionaire. So how do you even start space business without having sold a .com at some point in time? How did it work for the exploration company?
Thanks a lot. It's a great question. To be honest, I think that's also the unique thing in Europe, because in Europe we have this huge source of talent, which was mentioned also before. And for us, it worked because we started off with so many great people who gathered their experience already in space, in the European ecosystem. We started off with 6 people, and together we already had more than 90 years of compulsive space experience, and this helped us to kick it off.
Yeah. And Raycho, how did it start for you?
Well, for us it started brilliantly, I would say. I come from Bulgaria. When I started the company in 2018, we don't have space agency. We don't have none whatsoever relevant space education in the country. There is no any financing whatsoever for space. So what could go wrong, right? I always joke, we started in a small attic apartment, 25 square meter with 5 people, 25,000 euro that I took from the bank, telling the bank that I'm going to repair my apartment in the meantime. And that's how it started. So I always joke that starting a space company in Europe, and especially in the Balkans, is like being a baby again. You wake up at 5 a.m. and you cry.
Very cool. Very cool. But along the way, you both have raised money. I think you have the exploration company that definitely made the headlines with a $70 million raised so far. And it seems like you're finding the capital actually being allocated by European players. Tell me a little bit about the European landscape. And I think we heard in the previous panel, it's a little bit of a diversified landscape, and there is financiers with different backgrounds. France is different than Germany, probably different than what's happening in Bulgaria. What was your experience going out to those investors, and do you find they have the affinity to space, they have the capability to invest into space?
I think it's definitely going there. You really see, like, we are in this new space race, and with our investors, which are great, like they look really deep inside, like we really talked a lot of space topics. And what we experience, obviously there's a lot to learn still, but the European finance system is going there. They are really behind it. They see there's an opportunity. Obviously it's a high risk opportunity, but it's also a high reward opportunity. And we are very proud that we've been founded with more than 65 million by now, from 95% coming out of the VC market.
How about you?
For me, it was totally the opposite. I went to explain in Bulgaria that, hey, I'm Raycho and I'm going to democratize access to space. I got a list of 40 VCs and different angel investors, because Bulgaria doesn't have, at that time, so many VCs. One guy even asked the security guards to walk me out of the building because he thought that I'm mental when I told him this. So I had a different challenge. We had to learn very fast how the hell do we create the first technologies from the spacecraft that enables the spacecraft to be more affordable, so that the market adopts it and we become profitable. So instead of the traditional way where space companies needs a billionaire, or there is a joke in the space industry that the only way that you can become a millionaire in the space industry is to be a billionaire before that. So the idea is that there was no such option for us, and we have to grind our way at the beginning. But we became profitable very early on, and we are hardwired to work on the market to solve the challenge. And I'm proud to say that it took us 8 years so far, but we put thousands of new systems in orbit. We helped hundreds of new customers that would otherwise never have had access to orbit to be there. And I'm really proud that our team is actually pure European in the sense that we work with a lot of Europeans, and some of them even sacrificed the comfortable life in Bavaria to come to Sofia to work in our space center.
Well, if I reflect a little bit back on how we built SpaceX back in the day, a couple of crazy guys in Elon, right? And VCs didn't invest in the early years either. And what really made SpaceX back then a success was governmental, non-dilutive capital coming in. It was early the Air Force, then NASA. I remember when everyone was crying in 2008, SpaceX got this hundreds of millions of contract from NASA to build a capsule. And that non-dilutive money then pulled in other VC money. And today we have one of the largest, if not the largest private company in the Western world, now SpaceX. But all of that wouldn't have happened if there wasn't a government interest there. Tell me a little bit about your customer backlogs and your interaction. I think you have very different ways you're interacting with governments. How much of support are you getting from the individual governments, and are the governments acting differently? And is Europe at all stepping up to the plate and speaking in a single voice, supporting you guys? Raycho, maybe we start with that.
So far in the history of our company, we have taken €0 from the government and administrations, which I'm really proud of. I'm a libertarian, so I believe we as entrepreneurs have to create added value through the products and the services that we create, and the government should pay only based on the results achieved, and this is the problem in Europe. In Europe, European space ecosystem is developing. I'm really optimistic about it, but it still looks like comparison with the US and what you guys did in SpaceX, for example, and other companies around. In Asia, we see a huge movement. Europe seems like a patient in coma, basically, as a space sector. And usually it works the way that there is a few very large companies. They go to the budgets of the agencies and the commission, and they act a little bit like, I know the guy who knows the guy, a little bit of gangster movie, you know? And here and there, the European agencies would give a little bit of money to poor startups to say, you see, I do an innovation. But I believe the only solution there is very simple. Let us compete on the open market with everyone, with the big companies, with all respect to them, to the small companies, to the medium-sized companies like ours. Let us solve the challenge, and let the agencies and the European Commission pay only about the result of our solutions, so that we protect the taxpayers' money and we drive the innovation. Otherwise, it would never work. Forget about grants, forget about support, forget about weakness. We are 400 million plus people in Europe, incredible treasure trove of cultures. Let us finally wake up and do something meaningful with space.
Yeah, I definitely share. We need a competitive market there, because otherwise, like, we cannot build the best solution if there's no competition. We need a full informed market to achieve this. But I also see that it changed. Like, we see like we're getting now the competition. Just on the last ministerial conference last November, it was announced that we have this competition for the next space capsule in space by Europe. And this is great. Like, we really see there's a push for this. We saw that President Macron was announcing that there needs to be a European space vehicle which can serve for European sovereignty. And this is really, really important. And here we are seeing there's a change. We're seeing the support. It's now getting there that we have to have a competition. It's great. We see support in Germany. We see support for this in Italy. And this also shows, like, if you really want to build a spaceship in Europe, it's a European task. We really need to be everywhere, and that's why we also set up the exploration company from the beginning, not as a German or French company, but as a European company, starting in France and Germany. And now we just opened the first subsidiary also in Italy, because we really believe in a European setup here.
So I'll go then provocative and say, okay, we talked about sovereignty in the previous panel, and we talked in the areas of defense, we have talked in the areas of very specific industries that move the needle forward and can be one of those like key technologies that drive most of the other industries forward. But let's talk about small satellites, let's talk about capsules. They seem to be being served globally already by the US. Why is sovereignty so important in your topics? Because I think SpaceX is doing a launch next week with an all-European crew. We're going to have an all-European crew going up to the space. Why do we need the European capsule? So why does that need for sovereignty come from?
That's a great question, and actually, space is a global endeavor, so it means we need corporations, and we should always see corporations. We are working strongly together with India to launch our first spacecraft with them. We are working with US companies, but this is always when we have good weather. But we have to be prepared for bad weather. We talked a bit about what might happen if Trump gets re-elected. What does this mean for the space industry? Will we still be cooperating in this area, or will things change? And to secure this access of Europe to space, we need to be able to independently be getting to space, which does not mean we should not work together, but if it's really needed, we need to secure our access there, because space is such a growing market and such an important field that we really need to be sure that we secure the access.
And you're in a commercial market. It seems like it's being served, so why do you need to be there?
Well, space is strategically important for national security, for preservation of society, preservation of nature. And not having space program is like being a patient in coma. So I don't tend to believe that there is any patient that doesn't want to wake up from coma, right? So I think in Europe is fundamentally vital to have own assets in space, own intelligence based on space data, so that we can improve society on a daily basis. Otherwise, it will not work out. If you're reliant on anyone else's technology, it doesn't matter how much benevolence this partner is. He switches off your access based on whatever political instability, and where do you end up? In the medieval ages. So it's literally, it's not a question, do we need space? It's not a question, do we need an energy independence? It's a question, how the hell do we do these things as soon as humanly possible and as fast as humanly possible?
So let's turn that around then. Okay, you're a European brand and you're saying this sovereignty is needed. But on the other side, for you to become a big brand, you have to go also over the borders of Europe. You have to probably get, and we said space is a global business. I will probably challenge that. It is actually a very bifurcated business. There's the eastern side, China, Russia, and there's the western side, and the two do not mix at all. So I think we are staying in the Western world in this country. You have to somehow conquer at least the Western market beyond the borders of Europe. Is there acceptance of European technology? Do you see your brands being successful in the US, going beyond just a few contracts here and there, big DLD contracts, big NASA contracts? Do you see acceptance?
Definitely. So it's really, really important to say that the US market is a super important market for space. I think it's the market with the biggest budget by far. And we see we are getting traction there. We have been last year able to secure the contract with Axiom to fly cargo to a private space station. We are seeing this market furthermore evolving, and it's very important to be able to also get the traction there. With some institutions, it's a bit harder. If you look at NASA, we get a bit more conservative reactions, but overall, it's really to say, okay, it's such an important market there. We have really good traction. We get really good feedback from the customer base we're having there, so it's really going well. And as this, like you said, to really build this European company, we also need to think about the US market. That's why this year we will also open a subsidiary in the US to be able to really be present there, to react to what is happening there, and to also sell our products in the US.
In a free democratic world, which we still kind of live barely, it is vitally important that at the end of the day, the best products and the best services survive. And I prefer to have an open market and an open conversation with US, because US undoubtedly is the big brother and the huge partner of Europe in general, where we indeed have good access to their programs, to their commercial programs. And even though we don't have so frequently access to US funding, which is apparently because we are European entities, a lot of the companies who pay our bills are US-based companies financed by US VCs. So in a sense, we always have this traction. It's interesting that US is much more open market to competition in a pure sense form. I give you an example with us. We serve 240 customers around the planet. 65% of those are coming from US. If I go to compete in Germany or France, they're going to tell me that I'm Bulgarian and I should not even bother to compete here, right? So it's actually much more easy for European to go if you have a product or a service, and that's the differentiator factor. In Europe, you have to know the guy who knows the guy to give you a grant to do something maybe nonsensical, maybe sensical, you don't know, but there is no result at the end. In US, you have to have a product or a service. If your product or a service is better, you win. And I hope that we take these good examples more in Europe, and we are not afraid of competing in an open, puristic, democratic market.
Very cool. I hung my engineering hat over at SpaceX a couple of years ago. Now I'm a VC, right? Still doing space business, but if I didn't challenge you guys both, it would be definitely a shame. So I'm gonna go a little bit provocative and challenge you a little bit about the business. So I'll start with you, Raycho. We know space is changing. It's constantly in a pivot, constantly new products. And one of the new products that's going out onto the market is ultra-large launch. Hundreds of tons being able to launch to space, where, just to give the audience maybe a couple of numbers, it used to be 1 kilogram was $60,000 to launch to space. Now we're looking at 60. That's 1,000 times cheaper. In a world where it doesn't matter how heavy the satellite is, how big it is, why is small satellite still irrelevant, or are you pivoting?
First, every technology, you should never be confined with the technology, and this has been the plague of our industry, because most of the founders are technologically driven people who are much smarter than me. I'm a historian by education. So I tend to believe that you should never get in love with the technology that you are building, but with the challenge that you are solving. So absolutely, if Enduro Sat does not evolve over time, we are dead. It's as simple as that. It's a very romantic view of the universe. And I believe when Starship goes online, and we are actually betting that this system would be successful, and hopefully in the next 2-3 years will become commercially available, mass becomes irrelevant and gives us tremendously more opportunity, us as an infrastructure builders, in orbit to put ever better and more advanced systems in orbit, which is a tremendous advantage if you love change and if you love to evolve. If you don't, then you don't stand a chance.
And in your case, capsule business is, I've been there, is a long-term business. The first couple of times you launch is every 2 years or so. And it has a very long cycle. The destinations you want to go to, the ISS will get offline very soon. The space stations that you want to fly to don't exist yet. So in the VC world where you want to raise, how do you explain it to your investors, the timeline of your business, and make them comfortable that an exit or any kind of involvement is profitable?
Yeah, that's a tough challenge, obviously, because like in space, like I said, we are speaking about long-term investments. We really speak about like to put a man actually in space. I think usually it takes around 10 years to achieve this. So obviously at some point we want to go there. But down the road, I think what's important is that you just not only have a big vision to sell, because I think space is a great vision. This always sells, everybody loves it. But you also need to base on facts, and you have a good plan. And in this one, we build our plan how we get there with the incremental steps. So in the coming months, we will fly our first re-entry demonstrator, showing off that our technology is actually able to re-enter. Next year, we will fly our spacecraft, our first spacecraft with customers on board, which we will recover, which will come back to Earth. We will pick it up and have the first commercial customers on there. So all those milestones picking up off like that, showing that we are on track and showing that we actually plan it rightly. So far we've been like plus minus 10% within our business plan. This is where we get the confidence. And then obviously you need the right investors, and we are very happy with our investors who know that this is a giant challenge which we are having there, which is a huge investment from their side, obviously, but which also can pay off such big rewards. Because if we look at the current space ecosystem, we speak about, in the logistics area, about a 5 billion market. And this will rapidly grow with what you described, like this amount of cargo we will be able to get to space, the lunar economy around the corner. Who knows what Mars will bring? So there we will see like a growth in the upcoming years to like 30 to 50 billion at least. And this is like, I think, where you have like this high chance now with few competitors still. So it's the right thing, the right moment to invest there. And I think this is like where we can show, okay, we're following, we deliver on time, on cost, on quality, and there's really this market opportunity.
All right. The time's up, but I'm going to ask one fun question to wrap us up. A couple of years from now, flights to Mars are possible. You're going there, 40 days flight, stay there 1.5 years, 40 days back. Which book and who are you taking with you, and how's that ride gonna be?
Well, I hope it will be our company flying there. So I would love to fly with my awesome team. I think that would be so rewarding. Like thinking about this, we built this maybe for 10 years, for 15 years. And then this moment comes finally, like you are able to board your own spacecraft, like, and you will go to Mars. I think this is like really what I want to do there. And when it comes to a book, I think I would look at like the fantasy literature which we see there. Like, I'm thinking of The Martian, like this kind of books, like where you had all like the stories that looks all amazing back then, and finally it's there. So you're reading it, and you're actually flying to Mars at the very same moment.
How about you, Raycho? Who are you taking?
I'm not such a human person, so I would definitely hope that also the Tesla bots are available, so I can take a bot and he'll be very responsive to my wishes. And I would definitely take a hitchhiker's guide to the universe, so that with the message, don't panic, because I'm pretty sure might be 40 days, but a lot of things can happen on the way, so I'll be happy with it.
Oh, very good. With that fun note, thank you all for joining us, and thank you for it.